Hey punks! Welcome back to the University of Radlands. We have our next Cult of Chrome preview camp to talk about. I will link Daniel's Board Game Geek post in the description below. So let's see what he had on offer today. Today's camp he showed off was called Armory. It gives you one starting card at the beginning of the game. It has a trait. Your punks have an ability that costs 2 water and does a damage. And reminder, the damage symbol hits people and camps. And then for 2 water, you can gain a punk. So pretty awesome card here. Daniel described in his magnum opus when he announced the expansion that he was wanting to explore more things or mechanics in the game that he wasn't able to explore as much as he would have liked in the base game. That included traits and punks. And here we have a camp that does both. So one of the main problems or difficulties that you could come across in the base game when it came to punks is that you could have camps that dealt with punks, but you didn't have a great way to gain punks through other camps. So you had to gain punks other ways through the deck. So unless you got a camp like Arcade with the other punk-centric camps from the base game, you really weren't picking any of those because you didn't really have a consistent way to gain punks. So that was fixed with these sidecar abilities, punk being one of them. So if you have Armory and you don't have another punk-centric kind of combo camp, well, Armory synergizes with itself. So pretty awesome. But let's discuss and talk about what cards could combo well with this. So we'll start with some camps. Of course, from the base game, we have Arcade. This is really handy at the beginning of the game. When you have no people, you can start gaining punks. And the awesome thing about those early punks is they can start dealing damage. Of course, anytime you have punks, command post is always a great one, especially when you're wanting to build a punk army. We do have, when we're dealing with punks, the camps that destroy people. I don't think those combo quite as well as some of the other punk camps we've talked about because, well, now your punks can spend 2 water to deal a damage. So they're not really just fodder on the field that you can feed to these other camps, but you can actually use them to damage and hurt your opponent's cards. So you can still feed them to these, but I feel that since now your punks can deal their own damage, those synergies aren't needed as much. And, we have went over quite a few camps in these preview videos that deal with punks. So Fortress being one of them, you can gain 3 punks. Pretty big army you can spend 2 water on. The new Cash can give you a punk. This works really well with Motorcycle Club because you have a way to gain that punk onto the board and then start gaining cheap punks with Motorcycle Club or sending raids out. And Lobotomizer would be another one that when you're trying to restore one of your people, if your lobotomy didn't work and you drew or discarded the injure symbol, well, you gain a punk from that and your punk can deal damage. Keep in mind that whenever you're gaining a punk from the top of the deck, the turn the punk comes out, they are not ready. So that's one of the rules in Radlands. People aren't ready the turn they come out, and punks are people. So it's kind of similar to Argo Yeski's trait, where people gain his ability. If you have Armory, the turn that punks come out, you're not able to use their ability until the next turn. So keep that in mind. Speaking of Mr. Argo, let's go over cards in the punk deck that work well with Armory. One of the top ones probably being Uprising. Goes in the event queue in spot 2. After a couple of turns, you have 3 punks. And then if those punks survive, you're able to deal damage with them. Rabble Rouser and Vanguard. Rabble Rouser, another way to gain cheap punks to start dealing damage, or just dealing cheap damage with Rabble Rouser when you have punks. And Vanguard comes out with a punk friend, if you so choose. Since that friend can start dealing damage after a turn, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. And of course, we can always junk the unique named people as well to gain punks on the board. And there's Argo there. He loves himself some punks. He comes out with a punk, and he actually gives them cheaper damage than Armory does. So those are probably the main synergies that I see in both of the decks. Fun card, definitely a way, as I mentioned before, and like Daniel said, kind of giving punks a little more to do in the game. I love the artwork. As again, I would read Daniel's post about the card. He mentioned a playtester designed this card. That was not me, but I'm glad that this did go through and went through the iterations to become a really fun camp. So, punks, let me know what you think. Are you excited to see Armory? Are you excited to see punks coming to form instead of just being fodder in the new expansion? Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Let's talk about it. And as always, stay thirsty, punks.